got to set him free. I know he's there. He'll set my soul aflame.
We filmed in black and white because black and white negative was much faster, much more light sensitive than color film. And I knew I didn't want to use any lights. After all, we're invasive. When you bring that camera in, you bring that boom mic aim over people's heads, it's really invasive. You want to minimize the invasion of the privacy.
Why be so revolutionary and upheaval, and let's take one step at a time.
Do you think that this would be so revolutionary and so repugnant to them that we'd lose some people?
That was all shot with one camera. So the business of covering 12 people interacting, knowing when to pan, when not to pan, is a real trick. Because you really have to decide why to stay on this person. You say, well, stay on because they're talking. No, not necessarily, because you see what that guy's doing right now, or she's doing, he or she is doing. Well, film is a medium of reaction. It's not a medium of action.
I realize what we can involve ourselves with, but I also...
You get the feeling he made this documentary, even though clearly it's made with the church, it was something he wanted to see. It was a story he wanted to tell. And if nobody else saw it, that was fine too.
They figure and feel that this church might become integrated, and like Bob said, their exodus will be right out of here. They don't see why we should go and keep harping on this idea of civil rights continually.
If we do not start now as a church, the world is going to pass us by on the biggest issue of our lifetime. And I perhaps am being over dramatic when I suggest, where were the people of Germany when the issue of the Jews came up? Where was the church, both Catholic and Lutheran? How did they answer it? And Walt, you say, let's take a step at a time. This is the smallest step we know of. Dialogue, talking with one another, understanding. Let's not look back on history and say the church had nothing to do when the integration problem was around.
To me, it's really about a young man, Ray Christensen, who at the end of the film says, where was the church when Hitler was doing what he did to the Jews? And then when people said to him, well, Ray, how much did you, what have you done? And he says, who, me? I'm scared to death.
Well, Ray, how many colored folks have you brought into the church?
Me, I'm scared to death that the civil rights law was passed. Right. It is a fact that it is against the law to close the doors of this church. We can be fined by the United States government or imprisoned for closing the doors to colored people today. Yeah. Can we not?
Ray, this church's doors will never be closed to colored people. Never.
In our hearts, in our hearts.
So the message of the film is that unless we are willing to take positive actions in the presence of our fear, we won't bring about change. And the good news is we can take positive action in the presence of our fear.
The film is still enormously important because it captures a moment, but it also captures a kind of cogent argument of people trying to figure out what their feelings are. And we don't see that anymore. I mean, what passes for documentary now is a kind of really heightened reality television. And this is a film where there's something at stake that still makes a lot of sense to us.
I think you have a real obligation to get at the essence of the truth. And the truth in this, in fact, wasn't even about Ernie Chambers and Bill Youngdahl and Augustana Lutheran Church in Omaha, Nebraska. It was about how difficult it is to bring about change when situations, beliefs, attitudes, values, opinions are entrenched.
Enough of the people, I think, in this congregation now are suspicious. This is not good.
What are they suspicious of, Matt?
I suspect they think now that this is a forced integration, and this is not good.
What is a forced integration? I don't get what you...
A forced integration is going out, I suspect, and taking someone, bringing him in, just to say that now we are integrated, now we can brag. We don't want to do this, and I don't feel that this is back of it, but I think the feeling is there.
Well, this would not be bringing groups of Negroes into worship with us. This would be exchange in the homes.
Right. But you see, the climate is not good right now, if I would read the congregation correctly.
We look at strangers, and they behave in ways that we find uncomfortable. And so we therefore treat them in a certain way. Then they see us treating them a certain way, and our discomfort with differences that we feel are threatening escalates until we monsterize them, and then of course the only appropriate thing for us to do is be a monster ourselves.
Some may feel very defensive. They feel a need to argue with what's going on in the film and justify themselves and say, I'm not like them, or I'm like them, but those white people were traitors because they shouldn't have exposed us like this.
My concern is the reaction of the congregation, how they're going to take this thing. I mean, that's my real concern.
There's a church that we're thinking about celebrating its 100th anniversary, and we're wondering if it's going to hold together through such a trial as 10 members visiting into the homes of 10 members of other churches that happen to be colored.
Well, it could be.
100 years of preaching, where has it gone? Where has it gone?